We all love the Cybertruck, right? Well, not everybody, but if you know this channel, you've probably watched at least a couple of my Cybertruck videos and updates in the past, and of course, I'm a huge fan of the design. I want to see it come out, I want to see it hit mass production, and I want to see them driving around city streets, just turning heads and confusing people, and having a vehicle that is its own logo to the point that it doesn't require any onboard branding is just new levels of iconic and recognizable, and that's one of the reasons I fell in love with Tesla and wanted to start making more consistent content on them, was because I knew they're a different brand, they're a different company, and they don't think the way other companies do, and they look at things with a fresh perspective and have core fundamentals better than anybody else in the auto industry, in my opinion. And that does not mean they are perfect, you know, there's still a bunch of guidelines and honestly just a lot of the timelines that Elon lays out that I have a hard time believing, which is why I will be skeptical and doubtful of a lot of what he claims. But as a whole, I'd like to step back for a moment and talk about what went on during the last earnings call. That I was pretty upset after the earnings call based on how Elon had specifically responded to people asking for details about the Cybertruck, saying, you know, will people with the tri-motor reservation be able to switch to the quad motor reservation and keep their FSD price or keep their place in line? And in response to many of those Cybertruck questions, Elon kept reiterating, product roadmap update on the next earnings call, product roadmap update on the next earnings call. So we all kind of took that as, oh, this is when we're supposed to get more Cybertruck updates. This is when we're getting more Cybertruck news. Otherwise, just tweet, you know, if you want to provide a product roadmap update, which is just, we're focusing on the bot and there's no new models coming this year, you don't need to respond with product roadmap update in response to people asking about the Cybertruck. Just tweet that as its own tweet and try to not get people too excited because, I mean, they're driving around this production model around Giga Texas, and right before the earnings call, Elon is tweeting out, man, I just drove the new Cybertruck and it's awesome, I love it. So to then follow that up with the earnings call of basically, yeah, it ain't happening this year, obviously that's gonna leave people disappointed, and I do think the context of when he was saying to pay attention to the earnings call mattered. But ultimately, I want to take a step back from all of that frustration and confusion that I had. It's been a few days, I've had some time to digest, and I'm still kind of angry about the context and the way Elon responds to people, and I really don't think it's a good idea for them to be saying FSD will be safer than a human by this point, or robotaxis will be ready by a certain time. It's like, yeah, you've been really bumpy in the past with those timelines. So I think it's safe to say you don't know how to accurately predict when self-driving will be here or when it will be feasible. So let's not try to keep predicting timelines. It just makes yourself look worse every single year. But as a whole, I do think Tesla ultimately is making the right calls. I don't think we needed to bait people into watching the earnings call just to find out that FSD super unappreciated and the robot is important, but get people to listen in because you told them there would be Cybertruck updates and that kind of thing. My prediction is that people internally on Tesla's board were able to convince Elon now is probably not the time to provide Cybertruck updates, because the truth is, if we want to stay core to our mission statement, which is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, and something Elon did mention on the call that I agree with, is that if Tesla was to introduce new models of vehicle this year, they would deliver less cars. That's a point I don't think gets emphasized enough, because the way the market responded and the way the media responded to the cheaper battery day vehicle getting delayed and the Cybertruck getting delayed was overall just like, oh no, Tesla's in trouble. This is gonna be a bad year because they have to keep pushing things back. Does that mean no Roadster and Semi either? I'm thinking there might be some kind of momentum on the Semi, considering Sawyer Merritt has referenced the idea that Pepsi has already been assigned VIN numbers and there's already a megacharger installed at the Modesto Frito-Lay facility. Not to mention they included this awesome new shot of the Tesla Semis after the earnings call took place. So I don't know if that counts as like no new models this year, but as awesome as the Cybertruck is, and as much as I want to hear more updates about it, you know, will it get the midgate? Will there still be pillar storage? And we've seen some updated pictures of the prototype. Will it still have a ramp tailgate like the prototype did? Because the production model that's been driving around Texas doesn't appear to have that, and that's concerning some people. But the reason I'm such a big fan of Tesla, and the reason I appreciate them for making this hard decision, because they know, based on how the internet responds and based on how crazy we go whenever we see any type of Cybertruck patents or news or leaks, the Cybertruck is probably the most demanded vehicle that has caught the internet by storm, and there's not an EV out there that there is more demand for. We're not talking about any other vehicle out there that's getting like 2 million reservations, and even if you don't believe in the reservation being an accurate number of demand, just look at how much internet traffic is generated by Cybertruck content on news articles and on YouTube videos. Let my channel be an example for you. I've been making YouTube videos for over 10 years, and to this day, my most viewed video is still about the Cybertruck, even though most of my content is about Apple. Cybertruck birthed so many YouTube channels, like Stephen Mark Ryan. His whole brand kind of got kickstarted by the launch of the Cybertruck, as did this channel in covering updates and news around this truck. It has a huge audience and a huge demographic of people surrounding it, and I'm sure Tesla is aware of this, and it would probably help their brand. In fact, it would probably even increase their stock if they gave us new Cybertruck information, if they updated the webpage, even if the new prices and range figures weren't good, if they just came forward and said, hey, we're prioritizing the Cybertruck this year, this is just going to be the year of Cybertruck, we're going to ramp production as quickly as we can, we're going to get deliveries by the end of the year, I bet the market would respond to that far more positively than what Tesla actually did. The media would probably praise Tesla for it, and of course Tesla's fan base would be far more excited, and we would be really, really pumped for 2022 being the year the most weird, bizarre, iconic, recognizable truck hits the market. But they didn't do that, right? They decided it was not the right call, and why is that? Because fundamentally, as Elon said, new models of vehicle will result in less deliveries because there is a chip shortage that's still very much impacting Tesla. Not to mention the Cybertruck will also require far more 4680 batteries than the Giga Texas Model Ys, which at this point, considering they haven't given us range numbers on them, I'm guessing it's probably not that much different from the Fremont Model Y range numbers, and they even said that Giga Texas Model Ys will be prioritizing the East Coast and kind of central United States, and it won't be coming to the West Coast, so that makes me feel like they don't want the Texas-made Model Ys to be that much different from the Fremont-made Model Ys. So if that's the case, that means pretty small number of cells being used per vehicle, whereas Cybertruck, to get that puppy to go 500 miles on a charge, or even 300 miles on a charge, because it's so big and much heavier than a Model Y, that's gonna be a trick, and it's going to result in less vehicles delivered if the Cybertruck was prioritized right now. So as big a fan I am of the Cybertruck, and there's certainly a consumer side of my brain that's like, Tesla, you've already been building Model Ys for several years. Why do we need two factories building Model Ys, right? Like, why don't we just prioritize the Cybertruck, which there's so much demand for at this new factory, and just let Fremont handle the Model Y demand? The truth is, Model Y demand is already off the charts, and it's an incredibly profitable vehicle for them to build. Not to mention, Tesla on their last earnings call mentioned the biggest challenge with the Cybertruck is not battery supply constraints, it's actually finding a way of making it affordable, which I thought was a weird response by Elon, because that implies that through their testing and through their prototyping right now, it sounds like the Cybertruck is not actually that cheap to build. Otherwise, claiming that it's hard to make it affordable would probably not be a big complaint. And also, I think the demand for the Cybertruck is so high and so through the roof, it doesn't really matter if it's not affordable. Even if you charge $90,000 for the quad motor, or $65,000 or $70,000 for the dual motor, you're still gonna sell every one you can make at the 200,000, 250,000 production capacity run rate Tesla keeps saying they're aiming for with the Cybertruck. So you can afford to lose some people on Cybertruck orders, that's all I'm saying. But what I appreciate is that Tesla, just like when they introduced the Cybertruck, knew that they were going with a design and going with a choice for the company that was not traditional. This was not the cliche, this was not the crowd pleaser way to introduce a vehicle. Everyone was kind of expecting a boring traditional pickup truck look, something kind of like the Rivian R1T, maybe a bit bigger and with a Tesla logo. But what actually happened was drastically different. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the sexy lineup at all, and it caught a lot of people off guard, and it certainly ticked off a lot of pickup truck fans. They were like, no, this is not what we want, this is not a pickup truck in our opinion, it's so ugly, I can't get comfortable with that. And I still see people out there that can't get past the design, but Tesla knew ultimately they wanted to prioritize what people wanted in a pickup truck, which was the good range, the utility, the durability, and they prioritized that and did not care what the media or the press thought about them. That's why Tesla doesn't have a PR team, and there's still people that disagree with them on that decision, but I still see, as long as there's a backlog of demand, there's really no point in fighting the FUD, because the FUD will always be there. Even the US government doesn't want to acknowledge Tesla's existence, but do you think that's slowing them down? Of course not. So yes, I know that there's going to be more press and FUD and people that mock Tesla for delaying the Semi again, or delaying the Roadster and the Cybertruck again. That's going to get them more accusations of vaporware and more people complaining that Tesla can't deliver on their promises. So yeah, it's going to make them look bad, and the market's going to respond to that because the stock market acts purely out of emotion and not based on logic. And while it was a hard hard pill to swallow for me, and while it's difficult as a Cybertruck fan to admit that, okay, it's probably in the best interest of the company to not do it this year, I appreciate Tesla for making that hard decision. I appreciate Tesla for saying, you know what, as cool as having more models would be, it's not really helping accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. And I kind of understand why Tesla wants to hype up and talk more about self-driving and the Tesla bot, because those developments going on within the company are not really that hardware related. There might be some prototypes going on with Optimus and the humanoid robot, but most of that development is going to surround software, not hardware. And as long as there's chip supply constraints and there's hardware limitations preventing them from delivering more vehicles, you have to kind of go back and lean more into the software things. Like, okay, let's get excited for self-driving because we think there's going to be a lot of growth and a lot of progress in that sector, and the software development luckily shouldn't be impeded that much by the chip shortage or by battery supply constraints or like how quickly you can get final permits for a factory to start up and running. So yeah, Tesla's probably spending a lot in R&D right now on just figuring out how to make the Tesla bot work and how to make self-driving better, because there's not as many limiting factors in the software development phase. As far as hardware development goes, like, yeah, they could probably work really hard right now on developing the 8,000-ton gigapress, figure out how to do the Cybertruck assembly line and how the doors are going to work and how the midgate could be practical and where more storage could be on those sails on the side of the bed. You know, they could specialize and work really, really hard on that prototype beta line right now, but even if they had it all figured out, and maybe they do, it's possible that they have the assembly line for the Cybertruck all mapped out internally, but even if you had it already, the chip shortage is going to prevent you from making that many trucks in the first place, and those limited 4680 batteries are going to be far more profitable and catered to already pent-up demand for the Model Y, which even with their current range numbers and their dated manufacturing techniques, there's a huge backlog for. You know, like the base Model Y, if you order one today, estimated delivery isn't even until December, and if the range gets better or the prices get lower, that demand is only going to increase. So it was a tough decision, and it's still kind of a heartbreaking one for me because I don't want to hear about the Cybertruck getting delayed until 2023. There's some Tesla bulls out there that are convinced Tesla is sandbagging, and you know, I would say they're just straight up living in denial. Someone is actively telling them from the company, hey, don't expect a Cybertruck this year, and they're like, no, they're lying, I swear, it's still coming this year, I promise. Yeah, I really do hope you're right, but we were saying this all last year, so I'm not gonna believe it until we start seeing more and more prototypes actually driving around on city streets. Not just one that Elon's driving around, but several, and even then, I'm still gonna predict it's 4, 5, 6 months out, because that's exactly what happened before the Model Y launched. And at the end of the day, I just want to say how grateful I am that Tesla doesn't care about the press. They don't care about how lots of people are going to be mad at them when they delay things, because they realize what's important in this world right now and what orders and what vehicles need to be prioritized. And at the moment, that truly is ramping up production of the Model Y and doing it as profitably as possible so you can use that money on new factories and securing the company's long-term success. So that means R&D probably not going to be specializing much in Cybertruck production this year, and instead spend more time on software, because that's something you can actively improve and change throughout the year, and it won't be hurt by the chips. How do you guys feel about Tesla's decision to not prioritize the Cybertruck and not prioritize new models? I'm hoping by them saying that there's not a 4680 battery supply constraint, that means we can get some low volume production of the Tesla Semi, because I'm sure the Tesla Semi, given it only has, you know, 3 seats and just basically needs a bunch of battery packs, maybe that can keep going because it doesn't need that many chips compared to how much the Cybertruck or Model Y would need, and it just needs batteries, which I guess they're not supply constrained on? Or do you think it still would have been a better idea for Tesla to prioritize the Cybertruck this year, even if that meant delivering less vehicles? Feel free to let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you to everyone supporting the channel on Patreon, helping me afford a Tesla that we'll be buying later this year, and everyone just watching, that seriously makes a difference too. Take care, have a great day.